Let's dive into a day in the life of a woman named Sherry. Now, she's a composite character, but I guarantee her story is going to feel intensely real for a lot of us. It's really a powerful look at what happens when your life starts to spiral out of control, all because the word no has kind of vanished from your vocabulary. So, her story starts at 6 a.m. Before her feet even hit the floor, this is the very first thought in her head. It's not excitement, it's not peace, it is pure dread. And that one question right there, it just cuts to the absolute heart of her crisis. This massive gap between the joyful life she feels she's supposed to have and the overwhelming reality she's actually stuck in. So to really get how she ended up here, we're going to follow a timeline of her day. And I want you to think of each interaction, every phone call, as a trespass, a moment where a personal line gets crossed, leading to this mounting pressure that just becomes almost unbearable. You see, the trouble actually started the night before. Sherry had this clear, loving goal. She needed to finish her daughter Amy's costume for a school play. Simple enough, right? But then, a surprise visit from her mother completely hijacks the whole evening. And just like that, her responsibility as a mom gets shoved aside to deal with her mother's emotional needs. And this is exactly how it happens. Just listen to that language. That's not a simple request, is it? It is a masterclass in guilt tripping. Her mother is painting herself as this lonely martyr, which makes it almost impossible for Sherry to say no. The emotional cost just feels way too high. So you have to ask, right? Was her only choice really to just abandon the costume? Or was there maybe some kind of middle ground? This was a huge missed opportunity, a critical moment where a healthy boundary could have allowed her to be both a caring daughter and a responsible parent. Okay, so let's jump to the next day and see how this all builds up. It's 11:59 a.m., right before her one and only break of the day, and the phone rings. It's her friend Lois, who is always in a crisis. You know, this isn't really a friendship of equals. It's a one-way street where Sherry is just constantly giving, pouring out her time and energy that she doesn't even have, and getting nothing back. And this right here just perfectly captures the internal cost. Sherry isn't just tired, she's becoming resentful. She feels like all her effort is completely pointless. I mean, she's literally pouring from an empty cup into a bucket that has a hole in it. And she knows it, but for some reason, she still can't stop. Then, later that afternoon, bam, another trespass. This time at work. Her boss, Jeff, just dumps a 5-hour project on her desk at 4 o'clock. A project that's only urgent because, well, he was irresponsible. And even though she is furious inside, what comes out of her mouth? Sure, Jeff, it's no problem at all. He calls her dependable, and wow, listen to her reaction. It's so heartbreaking. What's supposed to be a compliment lands like a total insult. For Sherry, dependable doesn't mean she's valued. It just means she can be used. You know, it's the kind of thing you'd say about a beast of burden, not a respected coworker. The hits just keep on coming, even when she gets home. During one of the only moments of family dinner, the phone rings again. This time, it's a leader from her church. Now, Sherry had been desperately looking forward to this women's retreat. It was her one chance for some quiet and rest. But now, even that is on the chopping block. And just get a load of how the request is framed. It's wrapped up in the language of faith and sacrifice, which makes it incredibly hard to say no without feeling like you're selfish or, a bad Christian. So Sherry does what Sherry always does. She says yes and is left wondering when the abundant part of this life is supposed to show up. So her day has been just one relentless demand after another, but now we're at the breaking point, the moment when the full, devastating consequences of living a life without boundaries become absolutely impossible to ignore anymore. The meeting she's been dreading all day is finally happening. Her son Todd's teacher is explaining that he just becomes enraged and obstinate anytime he's told what to do. And here's the absolute kicker. Sherry's inability to accept and enforce limits with all the adults in her life, it's now being perfectly mirrored in her own son's behavior. And this is the moment the dam just breaks. She can't pretend anymore. She confesses to the teacher that she's facing the exact same struggles at home, and she feels completely and utterly lost. It's this devastating admission that her problem is now deeply affecting the people she loves the most. Later that night, she tries to connect with her husband. But their marriage has kind of become this parent-child thing where she just stays quiet to avoid his temper. So when she needs him the most, he's asleep on the couch. He's emotionally and physically checked out. So now, at the very end of this absolutely brutal day, she's completely alone, she's exhausted, and she's feeling hopeless. She turns to her Bible, just searching for a single shred of comfort. And her eyes fall on these words, the Beatitudes. And you'd think, on paper, this would be a perfect description of her, right? I mean, she is poor in spirit. She is mourning. She is meek. This should feel like a promise meant just for her. But instead of finding any comfort, what comes out is this cry of total agony. She's living out all the blessed conditions, but she's not receiving any of the blessings. She just feels run over. It's a truly heartbreaking moment of spiritual crisis, where all the promises of her faith just feel hollow. So it's clear Sherry's life just isn't working. I mean, she's trying harder, she's being nicer than ever, she's taking responsibility for everyone else, and it's all failing miserably. So let's take a step back and actually diagnose the real problem. Why is this all happening? Well, here are the symptoms. All her frantic work isn't actually productive, it's just stressful. Her niceness isn't coming from a place of love, but from a deep fear of conflict. And she takes responsibility for everyone else's happiness and their irresponsibility. All of these things point to one single core problem, a major difficulty in taking ownership of her own life. And that, right there, is where boundaries come in. The best way to think about them is like a property line around a house. They're the clear lines that define what's your responsibility and what is not. The problem is, Sherry's property lines have been completely erased, and now everyone is just trespassing all over her land. And the source suggests this idea is absolutely foundational. This verse from Genesis, it's not about domination. It's about ownership and stewardship. We're actually created to take responsibility for our own property, our time, our energy, our talents, and Sherry has completely lost the ability to rule her own domain. You know, Sherry's story really is like a mirror. It forces us to stop analyzing her life and start taking a hard look at our own. It leaves us with this set of really critical questions that, honestly, we all have to face at some point. Can I really set limits and still be a loving person? You know, what even are legitimate boundaries? How am I supposed to answer someone who wants my time or my love or my energy? Why do I feel so guilty or even afraid when I just think about setting a boundary? And maybe the biggest one of all for people like Sherry, aren't boundaries just selfish? These are the questions that really get to the heart of living a healthy, balanced, and truly joyful life.